My sister, Elara, was always the picture of meekness, never fighting for anything, the pride and joy of our parents. On her wedding day, when the groomsmen humiliated her, I stepped in to protect her. But they tore my clothes, and Elara turned around and blamed me. If you weren't so impulsive, you wouldn't have provoked them, and this wouldn't have happened. After she got married, her husband, Ethan, abused her, but she never fought back. I stood up for her, accidentally injuring Ethan. Yet, Elara grieved not for herself, but because her husband refused to drop the charges against me. She even told me, stone-faced, "If you weren't so hot-headed, how could you have ended up in prison? This is your own karma." I ended up in prison, missing my university entrance exams. Meanwhile, Elara became the beloved, virtuous wife and good mother, praised by everyone for miles around. To maintain our family's image of kind and upright people, she even suggested I marry a jobless ruffian, ensuring my life would be tragic and without a good end. But when I opened my eyes again, I was back to the very day Elara was tearfully recounting Ethan's abuse. Looking at her pitiable, fake face, I let out a cold laugh. As a virtuous wife and good mother, being beaten is your blessing, isn't it? Elara clearly hadn't expected me to say that. Her mouth fell open, forgetting to cry, though clear tears still glistened in the corners of her eyes. Her face, like a tragic heroine, immediately made Mom's heart ache. Mom hugged Elara, comforting her but not forgetting to glare at me. "This child, why are you siding with outsiders? Your sister is pregnant and being bullied, yet you say such cold words." Mom's attitude only emboldened Elara. She gripped Mom's hand, shaking her head as tears streamed down her face. "It has nothing to do with my sister. She's right, I chose this path myself. No one can help me." She'd been married for less than a year, and Elara's delicate face was already swollen from slaps. She buried herself in Mom's embrace, choking back sobs. Mom, heartbroken, gently rubbed Elara's thin back, tearfully saying, "This child, she's good at everything. From childhood, she's never fought with anyone. If Dad and I hadn't seen this today, would that scoundrel have bullied you your whole life?" I sat beside them, a cold laugh escaping my lips. Ethan Zhang was indeed a beast, but my sister wasn't far behind. Just now, she'd accidentally revealed the dark bruises covering her arm. Under the family's persistent questioning, she exaggerated the details of her argument with Ethan 3 days prior, clutching her pregnant belly and weeping, trembling. Dad was so furious he wanted to storm over to Ethan's family and settle the score. But Elara quickly stopped him. "Dad, you're old and your health isn't good. If you go, you'll surely suffer. I'm fine, I can endure a little." She spoke of her husband's ferocity, then her fear for Dad's safety, and finally her own grievances, all while subtly glancing at me, hoping I would step in to help her. Thinking of my miserable fate in my previous life, I couldn't help but let out a cold laugh. This life, I wouldn't be so foolish again. I stretched lazily, sighed, and then, feigning concern, offered a better solution to Elara. "Sister, we could just call the police, couldn't we?" The moment the words left my lips, everyone's expressions in the room changed. Mom immediately let go of Elara's hand, almost reflexively exclaiming, "No, we can't call the police. Wouldn't that ruin Elara's reputation?" From childhood, Elara Lynn had always been praised for her gentle, unassuming nature. After marriage, she became the epitome of wifely virtues in the neighbors' eyes. Now, to call the police, not only would Elara lose face, but the entire family would be subjected to gossip. Mom valued reputation above all else, while I was the most shameless one in the family. That's why, in my previous life, they could calmly leave me alone to face my burly, imposing brother-in-law. When things happened, they had their own calculations and abandoned me, causing me to lose my future and sending my life down a tragic path. I helplessly shook my head at Elara. "Well then, you'll just have to endure it, sister. If you don't want to fight for yourself, isn't this your own karma? Besides, your brother-in-law is such a asterisk good man, shouldn't you just endure a little for him?" I deliberately emphasized the word good. Seeing Elara's disbelieving gaze, I merely shook my head and sighed. In my previous life, on Elara's wedding day, the groomsmen insisted on teasing the bride. Of course, I didn't want anyone to ruin the most important day of her life, so I bravely stepped forward to stop them. They immediately turned their attention to me, but from childhood, I was known for being sharp-tongued. No matter how many of them there were, I wouldn't let myself be taken advantage of. Yet, someone unexpectedly pushed me from behind. I fell onto the bed, and someone seized the opportunity to rip open one side of my top. I saw my brother-in-law, Ethan, flash a lewd smile, his eyes fixed on the exposed curve of my breast. A wave of nausea surged through me. Then he himself pulled me up. My sister stood there, witnessing everything, but didn't say a word, just watched coldly from the sidelines. I sought out Elara to tell her my pain, but she only replied, "If you weren't so impulsive and unwilling to yield, they wouldn't have ganged up on you." In my previous life, the day before I was forced to marry a ruffian, I desperately went to Elara, asking why she treated me that way. That's when her attitude suddenly turned cold. She told me, "It's true I don't fight for things, but I also don't want to see my sister seducing my husband." It was only then that I understood Elara had always been wary of me, afraid I would steal her man. So when I pretended to praise Ethan, Elara indeed stopped her tearful pleas for Mom and Dad to intervene and demand justice. But the look in her eyes as she regarded me was filled with suspicion and resentment. I pretended not to notice, calmly sat down, and tapped my rice bowl. "Mom, Dad, let's eat. After all, she's your precious daughter. Seeing her bullied, you two old folks can't just do nothing, it's embarrassing." Finally, Dad slammed his hand on the table. "Elara, don't be afraid. After dinner, I'll take you home to see what my good daughter has done wrong." Elara's eyes welled up, but she didn't forget to glance at me, who was still eating with my head down. "Don't worry, Dad. How can your daughter let herself be bullied?" She paused, biting her lower lip, her face filled with hesitation, but then quickly became resolute. "At most, I'll sacrifice this baby." Mom immediately covered her mouth. "SHH, SHH, SHH, what nonsense are you talking about?" Just as the three of them were enveloped in an atmosphere of devoted family love, ready to sacrifice everything for each other, the doorbell rang. My brother-in-law, Ethan, stood there with a fruit basket, still in the posture of having just knocked. As soon as Dad opened the door, he politely called out, "Dad," then peeked inside. "Is Elara here? I told her to wait for me, but she insisted on coming ahead alone." He spoke, attempting to step inside, but Dad blocked him. "Do you still have the nerve to look for my daughter? How have you treated her?" Ethan feigned an aggrieved expression. I seized the opportunity to add fuel to the fire. "Brother-in-law, how could you lay a hand on my sister? She's carrying your child." Ethan's face instantly stiffened, tacitly admitting to the domestic violence. This life, I no longer stood to protect Elara. Dad had to step forward himself. It seemed Dad's fists were far more persuasive than mine. Not only was he not hit back, but he made Ethan confess everything. "I admit hitting my wife was wrong. I deserve to die. But you also need to re-educate your daughter. She clings to any man she sees." Ethan Zhang owned a car wash. 3 days ago, a high school dropout, a bright-faced young man with a decent physique, came to work there. Elara took a special interest in him, even dragging her heavily pregnant belly into the dirty, muddy workshop just to bring him a towel. This led to an argument between Ethan and Elara, and he couldn't control himself and lashed out. I sat to the side, enjoying the drama, feeling utterly delighted. Elara's face turned pale, cold sweat beading on her forehead. Before she could say anything, Mom pointed a finger at Ethan and unleashed a torrent of scolding. "Are you blind? My daughter from childhood has never fought with anyone, always a virtuous and gentle wife. She was just showing concern for that boy. You're too narrow-minded." Ethan, already feeling guilty about hitting his wife, and knowing he was on our family's home turf, could only hang his head and endure the scolding. After Mom and Dad took turns verbally tearing into him to their satisfaction, he finally got to the point. "So, can I come in now?" Once Ethan was allowed inside, he shamelessly sat down right between Elara and me. Remembering his repulsive gaze in my previous life, I quietly moved, taking a seat opposite the two of them. Elara, seeing my deliberate avoidance, was clearly pleased. The look in her eyes as she regarded Ethan was so full of affection that I didn't want to look for another second, fearing I'd lose my appetite. But even though I wanted nothing to do with him, he seemed determined to humiliate himself. "Maya, you're almost old enough to get married, aren't you?" he said, subtly rubbing his foot against mine under the table. I immediately shot up, glaring at him with a frown. "That's not your concern, brother-in-law. I'm finished eating. Mom and Dad, please take your time." After saying this, I shot Ethan a fierce glare, then turned and walked away. But Elara completely misunderstood. She thought I was secretly flirting with Ethan. Her eyes turned red and she bit her lip, putting on a pitiful act. Are you refusing to marry because you still have feelings for my husband? I turned back, my face filled with disbelief. Mom and Dad both gasped. Dad immediately slammed the table. Maya Lynn, what kind of person are you? How could you have feelings for your sister's husband? Do you want to share a husband with her? Mom also looked heartbroken, as if betrayed. If this gets out, how can our family ever hold our heads high in public? Before I could say anything, Ethan adjusted his collar, puffed out his chest, and assumed the air of an elder, lecturing me. Maya, you're still young and haven't had much experience with men. You shouldn't rush into love like this. My mouth twitched. I casually grabbed the glass of water on the table and splashed it directly into his face. Are you sober now? I stared at him, my voice ice cold. For a man who only knows how to hit his wife like you, I only want to use my fists. After saying that, I took a step forward, lowering my voice in a threat. Ethan, drenched and struggling, didn't even have a chance to speak before Elara shot up, spreading her arms to shield him. Maya, what are you doing? I gave a cold laugh, looking directly into her eyes. He dared to make a move on me. You tell me, should I help him sober up? Elara opened her mouth, intending to deny it, but I didn't give her the chance. I turned to Mom and Dad, emphasizing each word. Mom, Dad, don't worry. If I ever get involved with trash like Ethan Zhang, it won't be because I like him, but because of your virtuous daughter, Elara Lynn. My words weren't even finished when Elara shrieked, cutting me off. Enough! For the first time, she lost all her gentle, demure composure in front of Mom and Dad. This sight stunned them. They seemed unable to believe that this screaming woman was their own virtuous daughter. Cornered by my increasingly sharp gaze, she finally volunteered an explanation to preserve her reputation. What's the point of you saying things like that? Are you deliberately trying to make my life miserable? I'm carrying your nephew in my womb. At this, her eyes reddened, and she looked as if the whole world was bullying her. I gave a faint smile and fell silent, not out of kindness, but because it wasn't yet time to expose the full truth. The revelations that could ruin Elara Lynn and Ethan Zhang's lives, of course, had to wait until they were at their happiest. That's when it would be truly satisfying. I took a towel, wiped my hands, and calmly said, Mom, Dad, I'm going back to school. I won't return until Elara gives birth. My parents didn't stop me, and I truly didn't go home. It wasn't until Mom suddenly called me, her voice frantic. Maya, hurry to the hospital. Your sister is hemorrhaging and the blood bank is low. You're the only one who can help her. I hesitated for just a second, then nodded my agreement. Whether for Elara or for that unborn child, I couldn't stand by and do nothing. But cruelly, I hit rush hour, the busiest time of day for traffic. As soon as I got out of the taxi, I didn't even pause to catch my breath, immediately running from the first floor to the 7th floor of the hospital. Finally, I arrived in time with the blood and saved my sister. Elara safely gave birth to a baby boy. As for me, having run too fast, my legs trembled so much I couldn't stand. I had to lean against the wall and crouch down. I watched Mom and Dad surrounding the newborn, not one of them bothering to even glance at me. I rubbed my aching calves, intending to stand up and go see Elara. Just as I was about to enter the delivery room, I was pushed out. Elara's mother-in-law immediately raised her camera, capturing the happy moment. Seeing that scene, I, too, felt the joy of a new life being born. On the way back to school, the corners of my mouth unconsciously turned up. But the moment I stepped into my classroom, I froze. My desk mate pulled me aside, discreetly showing me a video with cheerful background music. His finger pointed at a girl huddled against a wall in the video, asking softly, "Is this you?" I nodded, intending to explain that I'd taken the afternoon off to go to the hospital and donate blood for Elara. But my desk mate spoke first. "You took the afternoon off to donate blood for your sister, right?" I nodded again. "How did you know?" He frowned, pointing to a comment pinned at the top. "But I don't think you're that kind of person." I looked at the screen, my scalp immediately tingling, my mind going blank. The video had been uploaded that afternoon by Elara's mother-in-law. In it, I sat huddled in a corner, hugging my knees, looking as miserable as a stray dog. In the comment section, Elara's mother-in-law had left an explanation. "This is my daughter-in-law's younger sister. She's always been unruly. Even when her own sister needed a blood transfusion, she was slow to respond, almost causing both mother and child to be lost." Netizens immediately understood, thinking, no wonder, while everyone was worried about the new mother, this girl just sat there, not moving. Turns out she's an ungrateful, disloyal wretch. The hateful comments about me soared to over 80 pages, but Elara's mother-in-law said nothing to correct them. In that moment, I felt like I had fallen into an ice cellar, my mind empty. I immediately found a teacher and asked for Mom's phone number. On the 5th try, Mom finally picked up. The moment I opened my mouth, I couldn't help but choke out, "Mom," but she didn't give me a chance to say more. "Maya, what is it?" I recounted every detail of how Elara's mother-in-law was slandering me online. Mom responded carelessly. "I'll have a word with her. Just focus on your studies, okay? Now, good girl, give Grandma a smile, sweetie." Heartbroken, I put down the phone but quickly tried to reassure myself. My nephew was just born. It's normal for everyone to focus on him. After all, we're a family. I don't believe Mom and Dad would let Elara's mother-in-law slander me like this indefinitely. My school was a boarding school. I could only go home during holidays. I waited and waited for Mom and Dad to clear my name, but nothing. Nor did Elara's mother-in-law delete the video. On the contrary, the video suddenly went viral, unleashing a wave of abuse against me. Finally, my homeroom teacher called me into the office, advising, "You're in your final year of high school. This is the most crucial time. Don't let these things affect you." But how could I completely ignore it? For many nights, I tossed and turned, unable to sleep. Eventually, I borrowed a classmate's phone and called Mom again. The moment she answered, I urgently asked, "Mom, why haven't you told Elara's mother-in-law to delete the video? Don't you care that I'm being slandered like this?" There was silence on the other end for a moment, then Mom stammered, "Maya, she's not home right now. I'll talk to her when she gets back, okay?" I let out a cold, hollow laugh. "No, you won't. I just heard her cooing to her grandson, calling him Grandma's sweet boy." The other end was filled with sweet, loving voices, while I stood shivering in the cold wind, enduring the abuse of the entire internet. I took a deep breath, asking Mom for the second time, "Mom, why do you only like Elara and not me?" After saying that, I hung up. Actually, I knew the reason clearly. From childhood, I was always fiercely competitive, never giving up on anything. Meanwhile, Elara would always cry when I bullied her. The crying child gets the milk. Because of this, I not only gained a bad reputation among the neighbors, but also constantly heard Mom's disgusted complaints. How can two children I bore be so different? One is demure and virtuous, while the other is so unruly and spoiled. I wiped away my tears. Fate is something you seize for yourself. I would never wait for death. So that holiday, I didn't rush home. Instead, I opened a social media account, naming it "The Cold-Hearted Sister Who Refused to Donate Blood." My first video was a series of photos of my sister's bruised arms. My second video was an audio recording, the very clip where Elara fabricated the story of being abused. Both videos shared the same caption: "Why did my sister give birth prematurely? Why did a healthy person suddenly hemorrhage?" My posts began to attract attention. First one, then another, then a third. Netizens started asking, "Is there a twist coming?" They meticulously picked apart every clue, delving into the truth behind the story. Finally, a netizen claiming to be a neighbor living below Elara's apartment spoke up. "On the day the new mother gave birth, I think I heard the couple arguing. And it wasn't the first time they argued or even fought. I wonder if a child born into such a family can grow up happily." Seeing the time was ripe, I immediately uploaded a photo of my arm covered in needle marks, along with the hospital's blood donation certificate. My caption was a single simple sentence: "I really did go to save my sister. We are family. How could I stand by and watch her suffer?" Next, I posted my school leave request and the time I left school. I even managed to obtain surveillance footage from the hospital entrance. All of this was to construct a complete timeline. Everything proved that I had not deliberately delayed in saving my sister, but was simply stuck in traffic. Public opinion gradually shifted to my side. Elara's mother-in-law's comment section was ferociously attacked. Someone sharp-eyed noticed, "Look, that girl sitting against the wall, her face is deathly pale and extremely gaunt. You can tell she just donated blood. Look at her complexion. How can that mother-in-law treat her daughter-in-law's family like that? Doesn't she fear causing chaos in their family? And her son too, what trash. He beat his wife until she miscarried, yet still pretends to be a good person." Under intense criticism, Elara's mother-in-law finally had to delete the video. But the situation had escalated too far and was no longer controllable. In a short time, I transformed from the target of online abuse into an object of pity. Conversely, Elara's husband's family couldn't produce any evidence to refute the claims and were branded by the online community as a deceitful and cunning bunch. I thought I could finally breathe a sigh of relief, but before I could rejoice, Elara posted something that dragged me back to rock bottom. My sister had a personal media channel where she frequently posted content in a classical poetic style or artistic portraits. Her photos always exuded a calm, peaceful aura, as if she were detached from the earthly world, which attracted a large number of fans. This post was her first since her pregnancy, accompanied by a series of happy family photos, Elara sitting on the bed, holding her baby, her husband sitting beside her, gazing tenderly at mother and child. Above was a long essay written by her, detailing the hardships of her pregnancy, how her mother-in-law had cared for her devotedly, and how loving her husband was. The post was overflowing with complete happiness. When mentioning me, she wrote, "I apologize to my younger sister. She's still young and stubborn, and because she didn't want to be blamed, she lied." Thanks to the pure and virtuous image she had cultivated for so long, many people believed her words, especially her fans. They didn't hesitate to turn back and hurl insults at me. Furious, my hands trembling, I tried to call Elara, but Mom answered the phone. The moment she picked up, she started berating me, not listening to reason. "What exactly do you want? You've already tarnished this family's reputation. Are you satisfied now?" My head buzzed, but Mom continued to nag relentlessly. "Don't get involved in this anymore. Let your sister handle it and find a way to restore the family's honor. If only you could be as well-behaved as your sister. Your sister is understanding and knows how to sacrifice for the greater good, unlike you." I don't remember when I hung up. All I knew was that when I regained my senses, I had picked up my phone and taken a picture of the scar on my shoulder. After that, I dug up the video from Elara's wedding day, the part where I stepped in to stop the groomsmen. I carefully edited it and posted it online. My caption was just one sentence: "Am I really as terrible as my sister says?" When Elara was 6, she insisted on having the reddest apple on the tree. I climbed up to pick it, and a branch scraped my shoulder, leaving a scar that's still there today. She doesn't like to fight for things, but anything she wanted, she always told me to get for her. For all these years, as she held the things I fought for, did her conscience ever feel clear? On her wedding day, did she forget? I risked my life to protect her, almost suffering public humiliation. When the holiday arrived, I decided to go home. This was the first time I faced Elara after she gave birth. Clearly, she didn't welcome me. She held the baby close, pouting at me. I took a deep breath and asked directly, "Why did you slander me? Do you hate me that much?" She maintained her pout. Since giving birth, she seemed to enjoy acting pampered and more childish than her age. "Don't you trust me? I was just helping you correct your mistake. You shouldn't argue with your mother-in-law. She's old, and whether you're right or not, it won't be good for your reputation if it gets out." I gave a cold laugh. Reputation again. I didn't want to waste any more breath on her. I calmly dropped a bomb. "Do you really think you're happy?" Elara's expression flickered, but then immediately returned to composure. She sighed, feigning helplessness. "Maya, saying angry things like this is useless. It truly is useless." "Is it?" I raised my phone, showing her a picture from my gallery. Elara Lynn's face instantly turned ashen. Her previous composure completely vanished. She clutched my hand, asking in a panicked voice, "Where did you get these pictures?" "No, it's impossible. I clearly deleted everything. This must be fake." "So, you've also hidden evidence quite a few times, haven't you?" I sneered. "Didn't you always say that heaven sees everything and everything has its karma?" I gave a faint smile, gripping her chin, looking directly into her eyes, emphasizing each word. "From the moment you harmed me, pushing me onto your husband's bed, you should have known he wasn't a decent man. But you thought that by sacrificing me, you could bind him to you. How ridiculous." I snorted coldly, pulling my hand back, my tone indifferent. "If you have time, you should go to the hospital for a checkup." I turned my head, glancing at the baby squirming in Elara's arms, and sighed softly. How pitiful. A child with an irresponsible mother and a father who isn't a true man. With that, I turned to leave. But just then, the room door was pushed open. Mom and Dad walked in, carrying large and small bags, probably gifts for their grandson. They were chatting and laughing as they approached the door, their voices cheerful. "Elara, guess what Mom and Dad brought you?" The moment the door opened, they saw me standing behind it. Their faces immediately froze. Their eyes turned cold and their voices changed. "Why are you here?" We were clearly both their daughters, so why was their treatment so starkly different? My sister stumbled in right behind them. Seeing Mom and Dad, she immediately leaned against the doorframe, then collapsed, her eyes overflowing with grievance. Her voice trembled weakly as she called out, "Mom, Dad." Mom immediately squeezed past me, rushing to Elara's side, both worried and scolding. "Child, you're still in confinement. What are you doing running around?" Elara bit her lip, saying nothing, just silently looking at me. Mom, seeing Elara's pitiful state, immediately turned to me and snapped, "What are you doing, sticking to your sister like that? Don't you know she's still weak? She just gave birth, and you're here causing trouble." That cold tone pierced straight into my heart, leaving me choked and unable to utter a word. Finally, I couldn't bear it anymore and spoke in a hoarse voice. "Mom, we're both your daughters. Is it because Elara has a good reputation and I bring you shame that you don't love me?" At this, I let out a self-mocking laugh. Dad looked at the scene in the room and finally spoke. "We're all family, what's the point of arguing?" I pressed my lips together, saying nothing. Elara immediately seized the opportunity, gently advising, "Little sister, even if you don't care about the family's reputation, you should think about yourself, shouldn't you? If this gets out, will it be good for you?" Before I could even reply, Mom slapped me across the face. Smack! The stinging blow made my face burn, my ears ring. The two words reputation had clearly hit Mom's deepest nerve. Even in my daze, I heard Mom's sharp voice ring out, "What trouble are you trying to cause now? Why can't you just behave? From childhood, you've always caused chaos and problems." I gritted my teeth, looking at Elara. She was hiding behind Mom, a triumphant smile on her face, like a general certain of victory. I tasted blood in my mouth but maintained my cold smile. How ridiculous! I forgot again. From childhood, as long as Elara maintained her innocent facade, every mistake would be blamed on me. No one ever needed to hear my explanation. Mom looked at the hand she had just used to slap me, seeming a little surprised by her own action. She reached out to check the injury on my face, but I evaded her, my eyes filled with deep disappointment. Elara also noticed the unusual atmosphere and quickly dropped her pitiful act. She stepped forward, trying to lift my face. "Maya, let me see if you're hurt." I slapped her hand away. She stumbled and fell to the floor, looking utterly flustered. I stood, looking down from above, and let out a cold, faint laugh. Mom, seeing Elara pushed down, immediately regained her composure, shouting, "What are you doing? Apologize to your sister at once." In that moment, Mom once again became the stern parent with absolute power, allowing no resistance from me. But I was no longer the foolish girl who endured everything. I stared at my sister, sitting on the floor, then shifted my gaze to Mom, who stood opposite me, and then to Dad, who had remained silent throughout. Finally, I calmly asked, "Do you regret it? Do you ever regret your favoritism?" Clearly, they knew I didn't fight for myself, but mostly for Elara. But they still only loved that demure, virtuous daughter, because only Elara could help them hold their heads high, while I, someone they couldn't boast about, was only fit to shoulder all their dirty, messy business. It seemed no one expected me to open my mouth, not to apologize, nor to beg. All three of their faces stiffened. I glanced at Elara, who had caused all the trouble but still maintained an innocent expression, then smiled faintly. "Sister, I've also prepared a big gift for you, to repay you for all your care since childhood. Let's all witness together whether the bright moon they've worshipped all this time is truly perfect." The opportunity came quickly. At a family banquet, Mom and Dad brought me, Elara, Ethan, and the grandson. After the previous argument, the relationship between me and them was strained. Though we sat at the same table, anyone could see I was an outsider to their happy world. I knew Mom and Dad had deliberately brought me here as a way to punish their rebellious daughter. Relatives around constantly gave me scrutinizing looks, occasionally whispering words like unfilial, rebellious, cruel. I pretended not to hear. Elara, on the other hand, carried her baby and brought her family of 3 closer to me, feigning concern. "Little sister, if you have time, talk to Mom and Dad. Just an apology will do." I gave a faint, casual smile. "You don't need to worry about me, sister. Someone else will have to apologize to Mom and Dad." The moment the words left my lips, the large screen in the banquet hall, which had been displaying beautiful images, suddenly showed a message. The message revealed that 5 months ago, Elara had texted me, saying she wasn't feeling well. Worried, I immediately asked for leave and rushed home that very night. But when I arrived, the one waiting for me was a drunken Ethan. Immediately after, I played an audio recording. Voices in the recording were clear. "Brother-in-law, I'm Maya Lin, Elara Lin's younger sister. Let go of me." Followed by Ethan Zhang's laughter. "What are you afraid of? Your sister even said it was okay. Your sister is pregnant and it's inconvenient. Do you want your sister to suffer more? Besides, you're the cleanest one, aren't you?" Then the sound of objects falling, followed by the sound of me pushing Ethan to the ground. I didn't dare tell Mom and Dad, and I desperately ran to find Elara. But what did she tell me? "Little sister, your brother-in-law only did that for the honor of both families. Just endure it a little." The recording ended here, but that was more than enough. The entire hall fell silent. All eyes turned to Elara Lin's family of 3. Her face was deathly pale. She wished she could sink into the ground. Even Mom and Dad were red-faced with shame, speechless. But I didn't stop. I grabbed Elara's wrist tightly and yanked her sleeve up, revealing the still unhealed bruises. I spoke in a loud voice. "Sister, are you truly happy after getting married? If so, then why do you complain every time you come home that your brother-in-law beats you without reason?" My voice echoed, without a trace of tremor. Everyone at the banquet clearly saw the bruises on Elara Lin's arm. Just a second ago, they had been toasting her family, calling it a happy marriage. But now, their gazes had completely changed. Elara Lin struggled to free herself from my grip, but she couldn't win against me. At this point, Ethan Zhang also turned to confront her. "Elara Lin, you told them that? No wonder the neighbors look at me with contempt. It's true I hit you, but tell me, are you completely innocent?" He shoved Elara hard. She turned, seeking help from Mom and Dad, but to her surprise, both of them were looking at her with furious eyes. Dad gritted his teeth. "How could you treat your own sister like that, just to please your husband?" My parents, who had guarded their honor their entire lives, never imagined a day when their own daughter would humiliate them in front of so many people. Elara Lin could no longer maintain her usual dignified demeanor. She slapped my hand away, screaming shrilly, "Didn't I do all of this for you?" She trembled, pointing at me, then at Ethan Zhang, and finally at Mom and Dad. But everyone just stared at her with incredulous eyes, as if looking at a madwoman. Elara Lin had never endured such humiliation before. Somehow, she found the strength. She lunged, grabbing Ethan Zhang's collar, roaring like a demon. "If I wasn't afraid you had a disease, would I have offered my own sister to you?" The moment the words left her mouth, the entire hall fell into a dead silence. Everyone gasped. No one could have imagined that the gentle, demure woman they worshipped could be so malicious as to offer her own sister to her husband. Just then, a resounding slap echoed through the hall. But this time, the one who was hit wasn't me. Elara Lin clutched her face, her eyes filled with shock, staring at Mom. Mom's hand trembled as she pointed directly at Elara's face, her voice choked but filled with righteous indignation. You truly lived for nothing. That's your own sister." At that very moment, the piercing cry of the baby rang out. I glanced at Ethan Zhang, who was now pulling his mother, attempting to leave the battlefield. I gave a faint smile and spoke up. "Ethan Zhang, you and your mother needn't rush off just yet. There's one more spectacular act specially for you." With that, I pressed the remote control. On the large screen, a series of intimate, scandalous photos flashed, one after another. There were many female leads, but only one male lead, Ethan Zhang. I looked down at Elara, who was still kneeling on the ground, crying and begging for mercy. I spoke coldly. "You plotted to harm me, yet you couldn't keep your own husband faithful. Did you think that by sacrificing me, he would be eternally loyal to you? How ridiculous. Did you know he's been cheating on you for a long time? These pictures, he posted them himself on various accounts. If you know how to look, you'll find a whole chain of them." I pretended to suddenly remember something and smiled faintly. "Ah, I almost forgot. You're too noble and refined to stoop to investigating your own husband, aren't you? No worries, I'll give you a helping hand today." After my words, the banquet officially turned into a battlefield. The guests who witnessed the entire scene were all left slack-jawed in astonishment. Ethan Zhang, furious, grabbed Elara Lin's collar, yelling, "You filthy woman!" Mom and Dad immediately rushed over, furiously scolding Ethan. But his mother was just as fierce. She charged in, pointing her finger at Elara and shouting, "It's your daughter who's useless, always putting on airs." I calmly picked up a handful of sunflower seeds and leisurely munched on them. Just then, a young man sitting nearby leaned closer, holding out his hand for some sunflower seeds. At the same time, he lightly patted my shoulder, signaling for me to make room for him. I shifted over, sincerely saying, "Thank you so much today." He waved his hand, smiling, revealing two charming dimples. It's nothing. Honestly, I've been annoyed with your sister for a long time. She always takes advantage of you while maintaining her pure and noble facade. I laughed, shaking my head. But anyway, I've ruined your family's banquet. Without his help, I couldn't have gotten the remote control. He waved his hand. It's fine. Come on, look, how far has the fight gone? I craned my neck to watch the utterly chaotic situation. Both sides were fiercely clashing, refusing to yield. Mom and Dad were pulling Ethan Zhang's mother's hair, while Ethan was pulling at Elara. He even managed to kick Elara a few times. Elara was sprawled on the floor, her face streaked with tears and snot, her makeup completely smeared. Not only that, a bright red handprint was clearly visible on her cheek. It truly was a bizarre sight. Such a demure and elegant sister finally having a day where she was utterly disheveled and miserable. Finally, I dialed the police, putting an end to the entire farce. The police arrived, and without a word, escorted the 5 people involved to the station. I went along for one reason only: to report Ethan Zhang for attempted rape. All the evidence was clear, and with his previous criminal record, Ethan Zhang was certainly not escaping a sentence of correctional labor this time. Ethan's mother was no longer as arrogant as before. She now knelt before me, her voice trembling as she begged, "Please, I beg you, spare my son. It was I who slandered you online. This has nothing to do with him. If you want revenge, let me suffer the punishment." I gave a cold, faint smile. "But it was your son who intended to rape me." I glanced at Elara, whose eyes were now bloodshot, brimming with hatred, as if she wanted to tear me apart. I shrugged. "So, I won't spare anyone. Husband and wife should go to prison together, shouldn't they?" The moment they heard I intended to send Elara to prison too, Mom and Dad immediately panicked. They staggered to their feet, their eyes filled with disbelief. "Do you really want to ruin your sister? She's your own sister. If her reputation is destroyed, she'll never be able to recover." I took a deep breath, then scoffed. Is her reputation more important than my innocence? It was precisely because I was too patient and valued family ties too much before that I let her push me endlessly. "I will not forgive her. Don't even dream about it, Mom and Dad." I looked directly into their eyes without a single flicker of hesitation. Mom and Dad could only let go of me, then rushed off to plead for Elara. Ultimately, under the police's mediation, Elara was released due to having just given birth. But for someone who valued reputation above all else, living under the gossip of the neighbors was no different from hell. Not only that, she divorced, was kicked out of her husband's home with nothing, no job, no money, and was pointed at and whispered about on the streets. Mom and Dad learned their lesson from Elara and treated me much better afterward. As for me, I poured all my energy into my university entrance exams, making up for the regrets of my previous life. When the exam results were announced, I chose the farthest city to leave everything behind.